Hi, this is Peter Godinez, your ambassador with KEDY TV, and we are doing a version of Good Morning Port Hueneme. And we have a special edition here. We have the lovely council member, or councilwoman, as I have permission, Sylvia Schnopp. And when we say a special edition, we're going to have her educate us, inform us, entertain us maybe, I don't know, on Measure M, something very important that's going on in the city of Port Hueneme. So Sylvia, it's always great seeing you. Welcome to our show.
Thank you, Peter. Always great to be here.
So starting from the beginning, tell us what you know about Measure M, and tell our audience what you want to tell us.
Okay. So Measure M is a ballot initiative that's going to be on the November ballot for Port Hueneme residents who are voters. And it effectively allows us to change our business license fee. The important thing here is that the last time the business license fee was changed was when President Jimmy Carter was in office. Long before I ever got on the city council, long before any of the others serving with me on city council were ever there. It predates even Mayor John Sharkey, who's been on city council for about 20 years. So in effect, it's been almost 40 years for us to finally update our business license tax. With that being said, between then and now, there have been laws that have been put into place that say any city that changes anything that is not a property tax has to go through this process. So for Measure M, for the voters in Port Hueneme, we are following the rules on how to implement, but also how to bring this to the voters, and that's really important. You'll hear a lot of stories in the community about what Measure M is not, and I couch it that way because there are many rumors floating around that want to spell out that Measure M is a tax, that Measure M is some other things, and I'm here to maybe dispel some of those myths. So Measure M will bring a business license tax really up to the 21st century standards. We had some old taxes in there that talked about, we're going to be taxing hotel rooms that have coin-operated TVs. Well, you know as well as I do, that went away many, many years ago, decades ago. But what it also does is it effectively gives us categories where businesses can take a look at what they deliver in terms of what they're doing in the community, what kind of business they have in Port Hueneme, and effectively then pay a business license fee according to that. We have found over the years, as long as I've been on council, and it's been 6 years, that there are many people or many businesses that pay about what I am paying as a sole proprietor with my own consulting company run out of my home, and they are multi-million-dollar businesses, multinational businesses that are paying effectively the same rate as I am. And when people find out about that, number one, they're upset. Number two, they're saying, why are they doing this? And number three, they realize that it's not hitting their pocketbook, but it's really charging those businesses that have the privilege of being in our community to serve our members, charging them the right amount that is fair and equitable based on the impacts they have in the community. From at this point right now where we sit, we don't collect much in terms of business license fees. Part of that is that we can't get to those that have the businesses. Those that are on base are effectively within the city of Port Hueneme. Many of those businesses don't pay a business license fee at all. Why? Because maybe they feel they can get away with it. Another thing too is we can't locate them. We can't go onto the base and say, hey, you, and you don't have a business license fee. And we've been trying to work that out for many years, but it's been really a roadblock for the city of Hueneme to find out who is back there, whether with defense contracts or other things that are contracted out by the military for facilities and for services out on base. So hopefully this will give us an entree in to say, this is what your business license fee has to be, Mr. ABC company. But what it also does is that it charges the businesses that impact the city with the fees that are necessary in order to cover those services. Because frankly, the people who have been paying for these businesses to be here are people that live in the community, like Bob and I and others. We've been paying for the road resurfacing and seal coating and other community services in Port Hueneme, and these businesses have been getting away with it. So now really we're putting everything on the table effectively the way the law has said you need to do it, Port Hueneme. You need to spell it out ahead of time. You need to give the range between the bottom and the top. Not that you're going to pick the rate right now, but everything has to be on the table and your voters have to vote on it first. And then once it passes, you can then start looking at and hearing back from the community based on what they're saying. So it could be a sole proprietor running a business out of their home maybe has the least amount of impacts to zero in a community versus somebody that has 50 to 100 employees driving on our streets every day going onto the base that impacts our community at a greater amount than those that have a sole business. We can also then see for realtors, you know, realtors check into an office but they're out in the community, or maybe they have an office in Camarillo but they are doing business in Port Hueneme. That's a kicker. That's where they actually do need a business license in our community. And it would be based on, are you an individual contractor? Do you work for a company? Is it a company that you own? And then it would give us that category of what they would fit in terms of what they would pay. Measure M does not tax everybody in the community. It's only those that have a business in Port Hueneme. It would tax those that have a location in another city, but they are doing business in Port Hueneme. They also have to get a business license. We're effectively doing everything that any other normal city would do in Ventura County. As a matter of fact, even the county of Ventura, if somebody has a business in those unincorporated areas, you bet your bottom dollar the county of Ventura is charging for a business license fee. So we're just doing it based on what we have every right to do in order to be able to pay for our services in the community based on those impacts of that business.
What would you say to somebody right now who is opposed to it? And you've clarified some of the rumors, but how would you have an understanding of somebody who'd be opposed to it right now? I mean, how are they thinking right now? How would you represent it?
It could be that they're saying, oh, it could hit my bottom dollar in my business, or they could say I have effectively been getting away with it and I don't want to pay it from here on out. Or it could be, hey, I have businesses working with me in the city. That could be somebody saying, well, they have a business, they have other people working with them. You mean those contractors are going to have to pay a fee? I don't think that's an ideal thing. And I just have to say, if you stay within the city, you'll have to pay this fee. The fee structure is there, but we will be deciding once the voters pass this legislation, we will be deciding then what those fees would be. But it could be the high end or low. We could actually set it at 0 for that matter, but it has to really be based on the impact of what that business is doing in our community. And Peter, if the businesses say, well, I will forego then my business in Port Hueneme, I'll take it elsewhere, that's okay, but they'll have to pay a business license fee wherever they go.
And so that's true. I think one of the bigger topics, and I try to say this as neutral as I can, but the bigger topics is obviously the two bigger entities in Hueneme, Port Hueneme, and that being the Harbor District and the base. How would somebody assure them that this is going to be fair and reasonable and keep a balance on it?
Well, what happens with those that are contracted by the military to provide services within, whether it be Naval Base Ventura County at Port Hueneme or the base that's out on in Norfolk, Virginia. Wherever they are, these contractors know they have to abide by local law. And local law is that you have to have a business license to have a business in our community. So number one, they have to abide by local law, and that's mandated by the federal contracts. So we only collect a few of the business license fees of those companies out there. Not everybody, not 100% are paying it. So it's even written into their contract. They could spell it out. What's your business license fee? If it's $2,000, they could spell it out. And the federal government then now knows what they pay for it. It's not where it's going to come out of somewhere. The federal government is going to cover that for them. You know, it's just their cost of doing business on that contract to be out here. So you also have to realize too is that there are businesses out on Naval Base Ventura County at Port Hueneme that aren't paying business license fees. Those that are at the Port of Hueneme doing business, not all those businesses are paying business license fees. So what it does is it effectively says, well, you know, from here on out, we're not going to go back to all those years you've been in our city and haven't gotten a license fee. We're saying from here on out, you must get a business license fee. And if you don't, you might be fined. You know, effectively, we're just using the tools that every other city has in their toolbox in order to charge a business license fee. That's what it boils down to.
So one of the things you're clarifying is there's no opportunity for overusing the tax to drive somebody out of the equation.
No, it would be very fair. What we ended up doing is taking a look at the other cities that surround us and trying to evaluate how they charge their business license fees. And it could be where, you know, it could be that it's based on impact, it's based on some other things. For me, when I did have my consulting that took me to different cities to do work with my contractors, so to speak, I would actually pay a business license fee based on the amount of income that I made in that city on that contract. So say, for instance, if my contract was worth, let's just say $25,000 and $10,000 was going to be received by me as I'm in Camarillo charging hours to a Camarillo client, I would only have to pay on that amount that I was making in Camarillo for the Camarillo fee. So it's not where you're double taxed at all, but you're taxed fairly on what you're actually making in that city. And so with that, it's a fair and equitable process. We've taken a look at what other communities around us actually do charge. We're updating so that it looks like 21st century businesses of who we're dealing with. We're not going back and saying you haven't paid us for the last 10, so pay up. We're just saying from here on out, this is what you owe. It gives us a structure about finding anybody. It's not for everybody, so if you don't have a business in Port Hueneme, it doesn't affect you. But if you do have a business in Port Hueneme, we ask that you pay a fair and equitable rate. There's also some folks that are challenging this that are saying, well, you can go to the highest level and you can tax a lot of people out. That's not what we're here to do. We're not here to tax everybody so that they leave the community. We're here to try to balance, but also to weigh in on the fact that there are some businesses who have put a strain and drain on the community services. And frankly, the residents have been paying what the businesses should have been paying all along. So now it's just righting everything. Measure M will also help us provide some additional services to the community because we've been spending it on roads and some other things. And now we can, you know, maybe afford to do some of the extra repairs that we have out at the pier, or make sure our sand replenishment is going well on a biannual basis. Those other kinds of things that are really important for our community. That's what Measure M is going to do. There's another group as well that is saying, well, these businesses already pay in lieu of property tax amount. Well, yeah, that's the case because the city does not collect property tax on the Harbor District nor on Naval Base Ventura County at Port Hueneme. But what the Harbor District does is for all those lessees, they will pay something equal to a property tax, but because they're leasing the property, and then that gets spread across school districts, community college districts, fire department of the county, you name it. And the city does get a portion of that, but the city doesn't get all of that. And it's just based on those leases. So some people will say, well, they're already doing that. Well, yeah, they'd be doing that anyway, wherever they be. You know, the business license fee is something else. It comes back into the city. It's based on the impacts in the community, and it's a fair and equitable way of identifying then what should be paid by that business.
Sylvia, incredible. Thank you so much for
You're welcome.
Educating us and everybody who's watching this. So again,
it was my pleasure.
Always is a pleasure to see you too. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
This is Peter Godinez, your ambassador with KEDY TV, with Good Morning Port Hueneme, with the lovely Sylvia Munoz. Sylvia Schnopp Munoz.
Okay.
Sorry about that. Bye bye.